Okay, we're back on the 53. I've got the convict front suspension underneath the truck and temporarily bolted in. I'm going to show you what I've done. A lot of measuring and squaring things up, and once that's all done, I should be ready to start tacking in the spacers. So let's go take a look at that. All right, here we are. Now this is just drill rod or threaded rod that I got at the hardware store. That's not going to be permanent. That's just holding it in place for now. I've got the spacers in place. Get your camera down there where you can see them. The spacers are there, but they're not. I don't have the threaded plugs welded in them yet, but they're there holding the suspension or holding the frame and axle in place. Now I had quite a time getting this axle and frame lined up, because I would set it down on the frame and it would be out of center off to one side. I would then get a pry bar, just laying here somewhere. Here it is. I'd get the pry bar and pry it over, and it would get lined up really nice. And then when I would go in and tap these spacers in there, or tap these rectangular tubing into place, everything would shift back again, and and then I would lift it up and try moving the axle over and set it down, and it would be off the other way. So what I ended up doing was putting a strap from this frame rail around that outside tire, and that brought the front end this way and the frame that way, and I was able to drop it down and bolt it together and keep it in place. Now it won't move until it gets welded in place. And then the next thing I had to do was measuring, and you had to measure from the center of this bolt hole to the front of the frame, and the center of this bolt hole to the front of the frame. Back up into there. You got to get hooked right on the front of it, and that gives you two common points to measure from. And I got that within about 1/16 of an inch. I don't think you'll get it any closer. And then it was a matter of doing some counter measuring. So I measured to this machine point right here. That particular spot is machined at the factory, so I measured from there to the frame rail, and on this one from right there to the front of the frame rail, and got the same number. I then measured from the front of this to the front of the frame, and the front of this ear to the front of the frame, and got that number the same. And measured from here to here. It doesn't matter what you do, that doesn't move. That was not even worth measuring, but I measured it anyway. And everything seemed to be nice and square and in place. So I got it bolted up tight with the temporary lag screws or threaded rod, and I'm ready to weld now. What I want to do, as soon as I can get to the 220 line in the house, right now the wife's doing laundry and I need to use the dryer line, is I'm going to tack weld this probably in 4 places on each side and 4 places on the inside on both sides. That way it'll stay permanently in place, but it won't be so welded into place that I can't, if I had to move it, if I decided something wasn't right, I could still cut those loose and weld it and move it pretty easily. If I weld it, once I weld it in solidly, there is no moving it. So that's going to be the next thing to do, is to weld those in. Once they're welded in, I'll then be able to weld in permanently the spacers, weld the bolts into them, or the threads into them, and then weld them permanently to this block, and then they'll be welded permanently to the frame. and then I'll run the grade 8 hardware in, and that'll lock it down permanently. Pretty happy with the way this went in. I thought I was going to have a lot more trouble than this with the squaring up process. That went pretty easily. I was pretty surprised. Of course, those alignment pins that they put in at the factory helped a lot. I spent a lot of time making sure I drilled that hole in the right place so that it would help line everything up. And I think now we're just at the point where we need to do some welding, and we can still adjust the tubes if we need to once we go to bolt it in. If the tubes, they won't be welded in yet, we can tap those around, make sure they're perfectly centered over the holes, and weld them in. And that'll pretty much take care of the front end. We'll still have to drill holes to mount this sway bar, but that's a pretty simple deal. That's just to put a couple holes in the frame down here. I think we'll weld some bolts in so that they would just, you won't have to worry about getting 2 wrenches on it. We'll just weld a nut on the top, put the bolt in, and tighten her down. Or even vice versa, we could weld a bolt in and run it up onto the threaded end and use a nut. Either way would work good. Alright, that's about all we have for right now. I'm gonna go ahead and see about getting the welder hooked up and stuff, and once we're ready to weld, I'll be back. Okay, bye for now. Okay, we just got done tack welding these 2x2 spacers in. We'll go take a look at it. All right. Oh. We got them tack welded in the front and the back on both sides, inside and out. I'm not going to show you a close-up of the weld because I'm not a very good welder. I'm pretty much out of practice, but they're tacks and they'll hold it in place until I can burn it in all the way. I think the biggest problem was I didn't get it clean enough. I didn't grind the metal, get it clean enough before I welded, but it's in. It's strong enough to stay in place. Now I'll be able to pull out these lag screw or all thread and plug weld in the threads in the end of these tubes and weld the tubes in, and then finish welding in the front end and box this frame at least right there where the tubes come up through, and back by 4 inches and up 4 inches. Make a good solid box in there. Seal it up so so water and dirt and stuff doesn't get up in there over the years. But that'll be for another day. It's starting to lose our light today. This is Sunday, so I'll be, I have to go in and get ready for work in the morning. But I'm pretty happy with everything right now. Once I get the bolts out, I get the front end out of there, I can lift this up with my tractor. We'll get it back up on jack stand so I can get underneath there and weld from underneath so I can get a better angle and get a better bead going on those things. And I'll lay a few beads down, practice beads, and get my welding skills back in tune. But for right now, it's done a good job. I'm happy with that. All right, well, I think that's going to be all for today. By the time I clean my mess up out here and head in, it's going to be dark. So we'll talk at you the next time. Bye.